Hey, good morning. My name, of course, is Dr. Julie Two Moon, and I am a naturopathic medical doctor and a Chinese medicine practitioner. And I'm coming to you today. Well, I'm also the creator of the Thriving Health Program, where we transform women's lives, getting them out of the cycles of exhaustion and hormonal wear down and bringing them back to vitality while also bringing them back to a peaceful, lovely home in their body. And so much of this healing has to do with really starting to connect to ourselves. And this is something, it's so funny because I find so often that this is a big piece that so many people are missing. You know, they think that healing is supplements and diet and exercise. And although those can be elements of healing, they're not healing. And so much of it has to do with really connecting back into our body, connecting to our emotions, connecting to how we operate in the world, and really giving ourselves a chance to become fully us. It's the hugest part of healing. And yet, you know, it cannot also be done in isolation. And I came here today to talk about New Year's resolutions because my feed on social media, and if I look at news, is filled, as I'm sure yours is, with a lot of talk about, you know, what's your New Year's resolution going to be, or all those headlines that are so like attention grabbing, and they hit us pretty hard. You know, the 5 steps you need to lose that 20 pounds, the blah 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 diet to get you lean and fit, etc. I saw someone in my feed post the other day, you know, they're back at their extreme exercise, they're working really hard, got to get that body ready for summer. And I thought to myself, we need to have a conversation about this, because this is actually one of the big aspects of healing that I find derails people all the time. And I've had too many women come back to me after having gone and tried to continue to do this intensity-driven model of health, and they made themselves so much worse. So let's talk about that. There's a rule in any transformation work that you're ever going to do, which is if you use the same mindset that got you stuck to try to get you unstuck, you're just going to get yourself stuck further. And so this whole idea of these New Year's resolutions, like I'm finally going to do it this time, you know, it's all that very brusque pushing. It's using force. I will dare say that that's the very kind of masculine side of operating, which is like, I got a really rigid plan and we're going to work really hard and we're going to push it, you know, and I'm going to just make myself not eat sugar. Like, that's it. Like, I'm laying down the law, you know, or I'm just going to cut out all of those bad foods and that's it. No more restaurants, or no more this, or I'm going to show up at the gym every day, or whatever it is. I mean, I've heard it a million times. You guys, I've been there. I've lived it myself. You know, we have this idea that like, if we become more committed and more rigid, and we just adopt this like do or die persona, it's all going to work out. But that's exactly the persona that got you exhausted, that has your hormones out of balance, that has your immune system dysfunctional, that has your gut dysfunctional, that has your metabolism dysfunctional. It's the exact same model of living, because you've been living that way. Throughout your life, you keep trying to enact, you know, one more plan, taking on one more thing, add one more thing to that list, and you're just going to gut through it. Right? That's how we're coached in this world to operate. I'm just going to gut through it. I'm going to do that. You know, I lived there in my graduate program the whole time through med school. I mean, it's really just one big gutting through it experience. Then, you know, you add kids on top of it. Little kids are a ton of work. It never ends. And you can't take a break from it. You can't walk away from your young child. And so you just gut through it. And then you take on, you know, like they want to do activities. Well, I'm just going to gut through it. Oh, I've got this job to do. I'm just going to gut through it. We live in this model, in this world of this gutting through it. And yet what we crave so much is flow and ease and peace and balance and joy. But those things cannot be found in that gutting through it place where I've heard women say, I'm just going to have to get up at 5 to make it to the gym. Like, yes, I'm tired, but I'm going to force myself to work harder in the idea that it's going to get me to where I want to be. And I ask you the question, if you don't have energy now, what's going to fuel that getting up and pushing yourself and then pushing your body to do even more rigorous physical activity? There's nothing there to fuel it. You're demanding that your body give you a response. You know what your body has to do to give you that response? It has to shut down responses that were essential someplace else. Maybe that's your immune system. Maybe that next time you push, it's your immune system that has to take a back seat and your body has to down-regulate its function. And now you're open and susceptible to a whole host of things, both chronic and acute. Maybe that's your gut. Maybe now your gut can't have the energy it needs to sustain because you're doing this rigorous, I made a resolution, I'm going to push through, I have resolve, and I'm going to force this outcome. And maybe your body has to sacrifice function at the gut, which means you don't absorb nutrients, and now your liver's taxed. That's exactly how it works in our system. It is not a guarantee, and this is that disconnect from body. This is where we live all up here. Intellect is not the driving force of healing. Healing for women, and let me just talk about this from the context of women because it's really important. Healing for women happens as we connect deeply within our body. We have complex hormonal systems. They do not operate better by force. We have a different metabolic system than men do. It does not operate better by just trying to force an outcome. We require different types of attention. We have to learn to work with our emotions. We have to learn to move energy through our body. We have to nourish and feed ourselves in very specific ways if we want to have that restoration inside of our body. It is not going to happen by force. It's not going to happen by will. And so if you've been thinking like, this is it, I'm going to make this happen, then the thing that you need to do is to think, oh, well, how am I going to learn to change that mindset? How am I going to learn to partner with my body? How am I going to learn to honor its message and what it's been saying and the things it needs and what it's been begging of me? How am I going to learn to understand this exhaustion? How am I going to learn to understand these hormonal problems? Not how am I going to force it to behave? Because if you go down that path one more time of forcing your body to behave, well, I'm just going to force it. We're just going to exercise harder. We're going to cut more food. We're going to be more rigorous. What's going to happen is you may get temporary gains, but they will not be sustainable. You know, statistics now say that 80% of people who adopt a diet will gain all of that weight back and more within the next 5 years. There's a reason for that. Because that restrictive mentality creates a lot of, it triggers all of our sense of lack, sense of not enough, sense of not being held and fed and nourished. And that shuts our body down even further. It makes a huge impact on thyroid here. It makes a huge impact on our adrenals as they have to go into stress response to keep up with us. It makes a huge impact on our reproductive hormones as all that heaviness settles down deep into the pelvis. The reality is that as you listen to me talk, notice how it's all connected. How I don't talk about the thyroid in isolation or the gut or the kidneys or the adrenals or the reproductive hormones or our pelvis or our immune system or our metabolism because they can't be taken out of context. And so I get that you may be sitting there making a resolution because you're like, this has to change. And I get that. But until you use a different philosophy and mindset to change the problem, you're going to get more of what you've already had. So if you're thinking, well, I'm just going to get really specific with my food and really specific with my nutrients, but you aren't knowing what your body's been saying or what it's really needing, and you haven't cultivated a relationship with it to where you really inhabit it and feel at peace and at joy and at flow inside your body, where you trust it, where you are really truly in that relationship. I don't care if your supplements are dead on, they're not going to work the way that they should. I don't care if your food is dead on, it's not going to work the way they should. That's why when I work with women, we don't even start with food. I think it's a flaw to start with food. We don't start with detox. We don't start with anything except for learning how to get into that relationship with our body, techniques and methods that let us come home so that our cells hear, oh, it's going to be safe to heal this time because she's actually here. She's not out there making plans. She's actually here inside this physical structure. Your liver hears, oh, okay. Your immune system hears, oh, I don't have to be diverted. We're going to actually conserve energy and direct it towards the right things. Your body hears, I get to be in charge of the healing. That's why we start there. In so many healing plans, it's just like off to the races, brusque movement. That doesn't work because the system has no concept of if you're really going to give it the attention it needs, if you're really going to listen, if you're really going to understand, if you're really going to take it seriously. That's why that's the first step with every woman I work with, is we start there at connecting inside the body, and then we work into food, and then we work into nutrients, and then we work into how we work with different methods to help those organs function better. Because this is what healing is really about. It's not about some brusque, I'm just going to force an outcome. Every time you do it that way, I guarantee you're going to find yourself back in the pit. And I should know, I've done it to myself a million times. So when you think about those New Year's resolutions and you see all those ads in your feed and you see all the news stories that are about, like how to make the most of your New Year's resolution and how to pound those 10 pounds off or whatever it is, I want you to think to yourself, God, how long have I been doing that to myself? How long have I been just assuming my body has it wrong and my intellect has it right, and I just need to use a lot more will and a lot more force to get an outcome? And then I want you to send some compassion to yourself, because the odds are you've been doing that most of your life, because it's the model promoted by media and even a lot of doctors and certainly trainers. It's the model that we're presented, and we have enough proof that it doesn't work, because if it did, we'd have a society of fit, healthy people that felt amazing in their own skin, and we would not have a epidemic of women over 40 suffering from exhaustion and hormonal problems and brain fog and fatigue and low sex drive and lack of sense of self. And that's what we do have. So it's not you that's flawed. It's the model that's flawed. You've been given a model that just simply doesn't work. So pay attention, because that mindset is going to get you more of the same. And that's why the first thing that has to happen is you have to start to really connect to your body. And really start to recognize that you live in a divine miracle. It has never done anything but what you've asked it to do. And I know that might be hard to hear, because some women will say, well, I never asked it, to put on 50 pounds. And it's like, no, you didn't directly ask it to put on 50 pounds. But what you did ask it to do was push way past its limits. You ignored its cries for rest. You ignored the cries for better nourishment. You ignored the cries for feeling those feelings, because everyone told you that that wasn't important. What was important was that you kept pushing. And the truth is that especially for women's health, learning to connect to your body is actually one of the most important things, because our health is different from men's health. And all those programs and models that are designed off of men, they don't work for us because our bodies function differently. One of the Chinese medicine masters that taught me, he used to jokingly say, you guys, a man's body is like a 1968 VW Bug. If you have the manual and a wrench, like, you're good, you can fix anything. But a woman's body is like the newest, the newest Tesla, where you can't even just be a mechanic. You need like 16 experts to fix the most simple problems, because our bodies don't work like theirs. And so that model of enact your plan and push forward, I'm telling you that model does not work for women long term, and in fact creates more discord, more disease, is the cause of more suffering. It's time to change the model. So don't make a New Year's resolution. Don't make one. Do think about, what do I really want? What do I really want? Because even if you want 50 pounds off, you want 50 pounds off, but why? What are you craving? What is the experience in your body that you're craving? You want that energy back. Why? What is the experience in your life that you're craving? What are you missing out on? What do you desire? Think about what you really desire. because that right there is where we start to connect to the truth of what we want and what it matters and why we need our body to do that. And then reach out, quite honestly, because this is one of the biggest parts of healing. You know, with my clients, we work on diet, we work on nutrients, we work on movement, we work on the detox organs. But the whole way through, one of the biggest things, and the reason why my clients have such huge success, is that we work on this connection to the body and changing the how of the way we do things and the mindset from which we function, which is how you sustain your healing. We've all done, you know, the rabid resolutions, and they're done by May, if that, right? For most people, it's like by the end of January. But when we connect with our heart to the functional reasons, that visionary reason of what we really want, what makes our heart sing, what fills us with passion, you guys, that's something that cannot be interrupted. It doesn't get thrown sideways. We can always come back to that. And that's one of the foundational pieces that I work with all of my clients on, because that's where you're still well 30 years in the future. So think about that today. As you may be thinking about New Year's resolutions, don't make one. Instead, start to craft a vision that really suits your biggest, best, most amazing, truly heart and soul guided life. All right, guys, blessings.